All right, we're ready for another episode, Coffee with the Founder. I got my cup here, and I got my special cup here. If you can see, I got my hustle cup today, baby.
Yes, sir.
I'm
Yes,
talking
sir.
to Dr. Hustle today. I'm so excited to have Brother Hotep here. Bruh, listen, we're doing these coffee talks, trying to introduce people to the good folks who are part of my network, as well as the Compton's family. And I'm really excited that you can be here to talk a little bit about the wonderful work you've been doing, are doing, and I'm sure will continue to do. Let me start by asking you to introduce yourself to the folks. If someone meets you at a coffee stop or a coffee shop or a bus stop or at the airport and you introduce yourself to them, how do you introduce yourself? Who are you and what is it that you do?
Wow, that's interesting. In short, my name is Hotep, president and founder of the Hustle University. Now, from there, depending on the person and my orientation with this person, whether they are on the educational side of things or the entrepreneurial side of things, my conversation might go one of two different ways. So, for example, if they're an educator, then my title is Educational Success Strategist, and I'm the founder of the Makeaway Consulting Firm, and we provide consulting services to schools coast to coast. Relevancy is our specialty, and we train teachers and work with students and parents and consult with administrators to help schools perform better, right? So if I'm in that side of vein of things, that would be my introduction. But if I was meeting an entrepreneur, then I would say, well, my name is Hotep, president and founder of Hustle University, but my official title is business abolitionist, right? Because I believe entrepreneurship is the key to freedom for all people. It's either ownership or it's slave ship. So which ship you want to ride?
So tell me how you came to the idea. Is this what you grew up someday hoping to be able to do? I mean, how did hustle come to mind?
Well, that's interesting. To be honest, a lot of what I do today has occurred by accident or by a process that we say at Hustle University of trial and measure, right? So in my late teens, it was my big dream to be the greatest rapper since Big Daddy Kane, right? So that was my trajectory. I'm from New York. I'm born in the 70s. So, that was just a part of my culture and just one of my big aspirations. But on my journey to become a famous rapper, I realized that I had an opportunity to take control of my destiny and that is placed in my own hands. And I had the opportunity to take control of things. And so as a result of that, instead of seeking to get a record deal, I became more interested in starting my own record label. And this is in the early 90s. So that set me on a path of entrepreneurship, taking control of my destiny, green lighting myself, never putting myself in a position where I had to wait for other people to give me permission, giving myself permission to do the things that I wanted to do. That was a very important transition in my life, transition in my own mindset, right? That's where the whole hustler's mindset really started, or what we call the achievement mindset. From there, I started making a name for myself in Atlanta as someone that was able to make things happen for themselves. And to the extent that my nickname was Hustle Simmons at the time, right? So people used to call me Hustle Simmons, a play off the word Russell Simmons. And from there, I just continued trying to make a way in the entertainment industry. But throughout that time, I was also a school teacher. So I was doing all that entrepreneurial stuff, part-time because I was a school teacher. So I went to school formally to Morehouse College to become an educator. I have a degree in early childhood education, and I taught for 15 years in the classroom. Most of my education was, my teaching years were spent teaching elementary school. So I taught 4th grade, 5th grade, and I spent 5 years teaching kindergarten. And my brother, kindergarten was my favorite age group to start teaching. I love teaching the babies. Because I agree with what Frederick Douglass said, which was that it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. And it's funny that, I bring up someone like Frederick Douglass who said that but was also known as an abolitionist, right? And so when I say my title is business abolitionist, you see how all these things come together, whether it's education or entrepreneurship. And those were the two things that were happening in my life. I was an entrepreneur in the evening, I was an educator during the day, and all those competencies came together to the point where I just basically created Hustle University to combine those two elements of my spirit. Because I'm a bona fide hustler, go-getter. I go for it. I make a way for myself and other people. I train other people how to make a way for themselves. But I'm a much better teacher than I am a hustler. I'm a much better educator. And so, you know, that's kind of how life led me into this space of having an educational consulting firm, serving schools coast to coast. And recently we were just established as an evidence-based program. And so that really took us to a whole nother level. This happened back in just this year in January. We were established as an official evidence-based program by the smart people over at UNLV. We went through the whole process. It was a very arduous process, but now we have that title. And so things are moving well and moving forward. So that's the short version, if you will, of how it all happened.
So what do you feel is the biggest hurdle for people, or what do you find or have found going from working for someone to working for themselves, to reach abolition, to signing the front of the check instead of the back of the check?
Good question. There's a few things. First and foremost, you know, because I'm in education, there's a lot of talk about mindset, right? And we know there's several different types of mindsets. So while many people have heard of growth mindset, you know, for many years I've been talking about that hustler's mindset, right? But there's also a different type of mindset that I've become aware of, and it's known as a poverty mindset. And what I found is that a lot of people, child or adult, whether middle class, upper class, or lower class, many people suffer from what's known as a poverty mindset, a deficit in thinking. And as a result of that, it inhibits them from being able to achieve the types of successes and goals that they want. So with that being said, what I found for a lot of people when I started in the entrepreneurial space, coaching entrepreneurs, was that it required a shift of mindset, what they, you know, in education we call soft skills, right? And those types of things that a lot of people just didn't have, that although they had the hard skills, and they did have the skill set, they lacked the soft skills and the mindset to make the shift in the transition into entrepreneurship. And the other thing, quite practically, is for a lot of people, it was difficult, especially people that are educators, you know, and purists like myself and you. It was difficult for them to realize that as an entrepreneur, you only eat what you kill, right? And I use that language because it's provocative, but it speaks specifically to the struggle for a lot of people that attempt to become entrepreneurs, is that when you're a purist, you do what you do because you love it. And when you get into business, it interferes with the love aspect of it, because you want to do it just because you love it and it comes natural to you. But at the end of the day, you will not eat unless you kill something, meaning close or make a sale. And for a lot of people, that's difficult for them, because as an employee, it doesn't matter, you know, how you spend your time. It doesn't matter if you kill anything. As long as you're present, you get paid. As an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter how much you try. It doesn't matter how much time you put in it. If you don't make the kill, you do not eat. And it comes to that fundamental idea, and it brings out if you will, a killer instinct in people to say, listen, I have children at the house, I have a wife, I have bills, I have, you know, all these different responsibilities. If I do not make a killing, right? If I do not kill some, you know, or make a closing, if you will, then I will not eat. And for a lot of people, if they're not willing to make that transition and shift into allowing that killer instinct to come out and really focus on what's necessary to make the kill, then it's better for them to stay an employee, because you know, entrepreneurship just isn't for them. And those are the two main areas that I find are most difficult for people.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about issues of privilege and power and whiteness? Because sometimes it feels like the way that the numbers shake out when you look at entrepreneurship or venture capitalists or opportunities, that there's some real disparities there. And even in that mindset piece that you talk about, what are some ways issues of white supremacy or privilege or power come into your work?
I love talking about this stuff, you know, and my perspective is not typical of what people would expect to hear from someone like myself. For example, my name is Hotep. I'm named after Imhotep, the builder of the first pyramids. My name is African. My parents were very Afrocentric. And as a result of that, I've always had a certain level of self-confidence, self-assuredness, respect for myself and my culture, and belief and confidence in myself. And as a result, I always speak with power. I don't speak from a pity position. I always speak from a power position because I feel like a very powerful person. So when it comes to issues of privilege and such, my response is simple. My take on privilege is very simple: that all groups have privilege, right? By being a member of any group, you have privilege. And as a result of that, white people have privilege, but so do Black people. There's such thing as Black privilege, just like there's such thing as Muslim privilege in some communities, and Christian privilege in other communities, and blood and Crip privilege in certain blocks of certain neighborhoods. So my point is, privilege is inherent to any group. And so that's my first point, that that every group has privilege. Now, in our country, there's a big talk about, white privilege. And my perspective is simple, that if anybody has a problem with the privilege that white people have as a result of their association or membership of that group, then instead of being so concerned with that group and their privilege that they have, I think a different approach. And for me, my approach is, well, if my concern is that our privilege is weak or lacking in some way, how do I utilize the power that's inherent upon myself and my people? How do I raise the privilege that we have within the membership of the group and association that I'm a part of? So as opposed to being focused and concerned about white privilege, my perspective and focus is more on how do I raise up the privilege that's inherent amongst my people, my group. And in doing so, as a result, I can literally, my belief and take on it is that I can literally offset the scale or the imbalance simply by investing more in what's known as Black privilege and spending more time building Black privilege up. So I'm not so much concerned about the privilege that white people have, which they should have because that's their group. So that's my take on that. In regards to supremacy, white supremacy, that's a term actually I really don't like the term white supremacy. It's almost like, there were movies that used to talk about the devil, or movies that used to talk about, I use a horror movie, Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, right? And, the whole point in Nightmare on Elm Street was that, Freddy gets his power because you believe in him, right? The devil and evil forces or what have you get power because of people's belief in them. And so my take on white supremacy is similar to that. I think that our buying into the concept that certain people feel they are supreme or superior to other people, our belief in that actually fuels it and gives it more power than it actually needs to. So I do believe that, of course, white supremacy exists, that it is an idea that some people hold. But I know, in certain parts of my community, there's certain people in the Black community that believe in Black supremacy. So again, my take on it is that we are all human beings. And as human beings, we have certain fundamental rights. We have certain fundamental powers and gifts that we can apply to this earth, whether white, Black, Asian, Latino, what have you. And I think that, so for me, I'm less concerned with what other people are doing and their agenda, more concerned with focusing on what our agenda needs to be, my personal agenda for my household and my family, and then extending that to my community, my race, and the human race as a whole. And so it's always my approach. So I always speak with power. I believe that we as Black people are just as powerful as any white person out there. I believe we're just as intelligent, capable, have just as many opportunities. And it's important that we start to focus on looking at the opportunities instead of focusing on the obstacles.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. That's why we need you more around that white privilege, because it's important to have these conversations with some balance and some perspectives that's broad. You had mentioned Afrocentric and coming from an Afrocentric home and parenting. Just for folks who may not know, how do you define that? What does that mean when you say I come from an Afrocentric perspective or Afrocentric home, parents, so on?
Yeah, my personal definition or understanding of being Afrocentric is simply being African-centered. So your perspective, your beliefs, your outlook on the world is centered on your cultural background. In this case, because I'm African-American, I have an understanding of the African aspect and perspective of that title, if you will. And so my outlook starts there. It starts from, it's centered in African culture, African outlooks, and the like. And so that's the reason why I speak the way I do, business abolitionist, and, I speak with power because I recognize that because I'm centered in African culture, I recognize that we come from power. We come from royalty, that we come from a background of science and mathematics and philosophy. And when you understand that, how could you look at the world from a place of pity and poverty and all these different things? It really bothers me, actually, big brother. It really bothers me the way some of us talk about ourselves, because it speaks to more of that poverty mindset, which indeed actually is an extension of slavery, a slave mindset, right? So anyway, that's along the
that's
definition.
helpful.
Yeah,
that's helpful. Now, knowing that you do work not in just any school. You're working with some schools where there's some real tough issues going on with some tough kids at times. And I'm wondering, how do you, kind of grapple with some of what we hear in education, school to prison pipeline, and some of the disparities in disciplinary kinds of policies at schools, also the lack of kids of color, often Black kids specifically, in the talented and gifted programs. From my studies, some of that is structural, systemic. And so I'm just wondering, what's your approach in dealing with some of those tough situations when you're witnessing Black genius, Black excellence, yet structurally it's not being extracted or manifested, I should say.
Absolutely. So you're right. Structurally and systematically, it's our success and supporting in many ways our best interest is not supported systematically and structurally. And that's the reason why I always speak with power. We should never expect other people who build a system and structure for their benefit to do so for our benefit. You understand what I'm saying? It makes sense to me that things are the way they are because the people that build it centered amongst themselves, right? So it makes sense. I think it's natural, and I don't blame people for doing that. Where I find, again, my perspective is we are equally capable of building structure and building systems. So if we have a problem, this is only if we have a problem with the structures and systems that other people build, my solution is build your own system, build your own structure, right? And then again, and I always speak from that position of power because it's not that I don't recognize what other people are doing. I recognize the same genius and power and ability within ourselves. I don't complain about it. I make it happen because that's what I do. I'm a bona fide hustler, my brother. So in any case, the work that we do is to help bring bring a different perspective to the people who build structure, who build systems. So a lot of my work is spent working with administrators, helping them see things from a different perspective, helping people see beyond their own biases, helping people be more empathetic, helping people understand poverty mindset so that they can help change people who suffer from poverty mindset into what's known as an achievement mindset. So I see it every day. It's very sad. It's very sad to me. And I always challenge when people talk about the school to prison pipeline. I like to talk about the home to prison pipeline. You see what I'm saying? Like, because before the school is the home, right? And so again, and I'm always going to do that, Doc. And I don't mean to be disrespectful. I have to challenge the conversation, right? That's the reason why I had so many. I had to deal with so many people at your first conference when I spoke there, because they're like, "Oh my God, what are you talking about?" Right? Because they wanted me to speak from a different perspective. I said, "No, I'm not going to do that." They wanted me to talk about the system that other people built and all that. I recognize that, but I want to talk about where we have control. Where we have control. So as much as there is, indeed, I recognize, yes, there is a school to prison pipeline, but there is also a home to prison pipeline as well. Now, who wants to talk about that? See, we don't want to talk about that, right? Because then it seems like we're blaming the victim. No, we're not blaming the victim. We're recognizing our true and innate power that all of us have, right? A true and innate power. And with that great power also comes responsibility. So ultimately, no, we're not just poor, impoverished, ignorant, downtrodden people. No, that's not who we are. Again, speaking from an African-centered perspective, we are powerful people who come from royalty and intellect and intelligence. So there's nothing stopping us from building our own systems with our own interests, our own schools, if you will, our own structures, or those of us that are in power, because we have principals in place, we have superintendents, right? And all this thing, we have people who look like me in positions of power that make decisions that may or may not be making the right decisions, for our best interest. So in any case, hopefully I'm saying something of interest. I love to be provocative and share a different perspective and bring it to this conversation. So did I answer your question?
Yeah. I mean, I think you, again, spoke to structure systems, but in a way that's not possibly what people are used to hearing, which I appreciate. And why I want to reiterate, you're always welcome at the White Privilege Conference, always. And so what I want to ask you about now is COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
One, how are you doing? The family's doing? And two, what do you see in reference to your local community and what's happening around you? What's COVID-19 telling you about the state of America, the state of the world, as you look at that as well?
Well, first of all, me and the family are well. We're safe. We've been practicing social distancing. I have a new son. My son's only 11 months old, so my wife is on extra alert, right? She's like, she is not playing. She's not taking any chances. So we're good. In regards to what I've been observing, I really I had a conversation earlier this morning about it. Obviously it's the talk of every conversation now. I believe that unfortunately, COVID-19 is going to ravage our planet. Just like at one point, the flu ravaged our planet, and it's going to take its toll on humanity. It is going to change the way we operate as human beings for the rest of our lives, and many generations beyond. I hope that we come up with a vaccine very quickly, and if so, then it'll normalize to the extent that people will get it just like they get the flu, but we'll be able to deal with it. In regards to the way different cities or states are responding to it, I don't think that people are taking it serious enough. I don't think some people are taking it serious enough, but I don't blame them. For example, I live in Georgia. I'm in Atlanta. Our governor just said on Friday he's going to open up restaurants and barbershops and hair salons. My wife is totally against that. She's like, no, people are going to get sick, and it's going to raise our death toll. And the governor admitted that that's what's going to happen. But I also recognize on the other side that for some people, being confined to their home is a slow death for them. You know, they're dying being inside of their house, being so confined. A lot of us have built our lives with the understanding that we can leave our house every day and go wherever we want. But now that we can't, you know, the divorce rate is spiking. What's it called? Domestic violence is spiking. You know, why is this happening? Because people are now having to face each other in smaller confined conditions. They're not used to that, and they can't escape. You know, so work provided a level of escapism for some people. Of course, it made people feel like they had a sense of purpose in this world. And without being able to go to work and escape your household, for a lot of people, that's very troubling. It's problematic in many different ways. So ultimately, for some people, taking the chance of getting COVID-19 is worth the risk. And I can understand that. I can appreciate that, especially in some communities where they don't have 3-level houses like I have, right? Now, they don't have a basement. I can always just, if I'm tired of seeing my wife, I can just go to the basement, right? But some people, they live in a 2-bedroom apartment, right? What do you do when you're in those confines? And so what we're seeing in our country is, as was mentioned before, it's bringing out now even more clearly the divide in regards to race and primarily economics and people's ability to weather storms like these. And it's making it very apparent that some people have the ability to weather a storm like this and other people do not. And as a governor, you're the governor of all those people, and you have to make decisions for all your people, not just the poor people, not just the rich people, not just the white or the black. So I say all that to say that yesterday our governor decided that he was going to open up certain businesses. And although many people, including my wife, disagree with that, I'm not sure. I can understand why, as a leader, you would have to make a decision like that and, let the chips fall as they may.
Mm. Well, it seems like school is done. At least for this school year. I don't know if that's going to be the case if the governor will move to allow schools to reopen and graduation to happen. I don't know. It seems to me, though, school is done. I'm wondering if I'm asking you to do a national televised PSA to students at home right now to keep them motivated, interested. What's Hotep going to say to the children of the nation who are willing to listen to you at this time? What would be your message to young people during this unprecedented time?
My message in short would be that in times of crisis, times of uncertainty, can do one of two things. They can either break you or they can make you. And as a bona fide hustler, I am focused on using this time to help it make me. And I want to recognize that as much as we're dealing with the challenges of COVID-19, that there's an opportunity here. Just as much as there's an obstacle, there is an opportunity. There's an opportunity to read a book. There's an opportunity to write a book. There's an opportunity to create something, to invent something. There's an opportunity to develop something, innovate something that's going to help solve the new problems that our society will have. So again, instead of focusing on the obstacles and the challenges, look at the opportunities, stay productive, keep on your hustle, because that's what hustlers do.
Yeah. Now, I'm assuming you often, or at least have minimally faced hustle meaning negative, like drug dealer, something in some way that it's the complete opposite of what you mean and how you mean it. So when you say hustle, what does that mean? Can you define that to folks who are listening? When you say hustle, hustle-thon, hustle every day, all the things that you incorporate with that, what does that mean?
Our the way we use the word hustle is, and it's the context which you can find in Webster's dictionary, which can be officially defined as a verb, meaning to act aggressively, particularly in business dealings. So our position is that if a person wants to be successful at achieving any goal, whatever that goal is, financial or otherwise, that they need to be aggressive, acting aggressive towards that end. Whatever your business is, if you're a student, your business is to get an education, and you need to be aggressive about that. So that is the context in which we use the word hustle. And you're right. One of the biggest challenges for me in business as an entrepreneur is twofold. One, looking the way I look, right? Meaning being African-American, having very dark skin, having my beard shaved like this and my hair like this, and, you know, wearing a chain, and, you know, the way I present myself. People have biases, obviously, about a person who looks like me. I'm very well aware of that bias. And I've chosen to take that challenge on and bear that cross to help people reframe the way they look at a person who looks like me. But it's been a challenge because it's difficult for people to imagine that a person who looks like me can be a professional, can be the author of over 20 books, right? Who was actually a kindergarten teacher, a person who looks like me to be a CEO, if you will, title founder. Like, you typically don't see a person who looks like this with those types of titles and associations, not to mention keynote speaker or consultant to administrators all across the country. It's difficult for people to imagine that a person like myself can be all these things and do it well. So that has been a big challenge for me. And then you add on that the name of the company is Hustle University, right? Oh man, please, he can't be serious, right? Oh, he can't be, you know, no way. You know, they can't be evidence-based like they are. And so ultimately, when, you know, as much as it is a struggle, I bear that cross. It's a beautiful struggle, as we say. And I think I know for a fact that over the last 10 years that I've been doing this full time, that I've changed a lot of hearts and minds about people who look like me, right? And so the next time a educator has a student in their office, you know, they'll think twice about the way they look because of their saggy pants or what have you. They'll remember that guy named Hotep, and they'll give that kid just another chance, just to prove, to let them know who he is, the character, the content of his character, right? The next time a police officer pulls a young man who looks like me, you know, to the side, maybe he won't be so quick to pull the gun, because he'll remember he met a guy named Hotep, and he was actually the founder of Hustle University and used to teach kindergarten, you know? So I know those types of things are transformative, have been transformative for a lot of people. I will continue on this mission, continue to do it that way, because I got to represent, as we say in our culture.
And again, Hotep, man, if there's any way the Privilege Institute, the White Privilege Conference can partner with you, collaborate with you, I just want to put it on record, bro. Since the day I met you, since the day you come on the scene, I've always appreciated your support for what it is we're doing and your willingness to be in collaboration. So I just want to name that while we're here. Let me ask you about the next 10 years. What's on the horizon for Hotep Hustle University?
Great question. Thank you for that. First of all, let me address what you just said. Doc, Eddie, I am more than happy. I really, you know, I'd only attended your conference one time, and you have a very special space there that you created. I commend you and salute you for what you have done. And I was very excited to bring this type of perspective. I'm sure, of course, I'm not the only person that has this kind of perspective, but again, I was very excited to bring it to the White Privilege Conference. And I believe heavily and I believe very deeply that bringing that perspective and having more conversations from there, from that area, can be very beneficial to a lot of people, both white and black and otherwise. And so I want to thank you for that invitation. I'm going to take you up on an invitation. And so thank you for that, first and foremost. In regards to the future, so Hustle University has been growing. You know, when we first met, it was probably just me and my partner, Red. You know, it's just the two of us, the Hustle brothers, going at it together. But we've grown, and we've expanded. We work, as I said, nationally now. And started working internationally. So the future for us is to continue to grow nationally and serve more schools. Now that we've been designated as an evidence-based program, that's going to do a lot for us. So I've been training a lot of other trainers. I'm putting people in position to focus on certain areas so that I can focus on the areas that I'm best at, which is not only leading the organization, but consulting with administrators and training teachers. That's the area that I focus on. And I have other people that focus on working with students, working with parents, working with other subgroups, boys, girls, things of that nature. And then also, so doing better with focusing on our nation, issues in our nation, but then ultimately moving forward internationally. There's a lot of schools across this world that can benefit from a Hustle University. Our approach to social emotional learning, our approach to organizational dynamics and management, our approach to entrepreneurship and addressing poverty mindset is really an international objective of ours. So ultimately, yes, we started working in the islands, the Cayman Islands, and the island of Curacao. We're looking at doing some work in Holland next. And of course, taking it to South America. We've been having talks of doing some work in, I forget the country in South America, but South America, Europe, Asia, and of course, take it back home to the continent of Africa, right, where everything is centered for me, and do work in South Africa, Nigeria, Ghana, and Egypt are some of the countries that I'm looking at in the continent of Africa.
So you mentioned 20 books over.
Yes, yes.
Are there any other publications cooking in the mind, on your mind as you look ahead?
So ironically, so I had a book that I was finishing for my son's first birthday. His birthday is May 13th, next month. And so I had created a book. I had written a book for parents of very young children like myself. And so that's a book I'm excited about releasing on the date of his birthday. But besides that, a lot of the work that I've been doing has been focusing on providing online solutions and online content because of COVID-19. And so I've been developing a lot of online courses. For example, the Poverty Mindset Certification Program is available online for educators. We have some of our trainings for teachers available online. We have the Hustle Brothers, the characters based off myself and my partner Red. So we have an animated cartoon series for elementary age students, and we have coloring sheets and kids books there, housed in what we call the Hustle Brothers Clubhouse, which is a collection of all of our content for the little ones. And most recently, to help some of my entrepreneur friends who are struggling during this time, I created a course, just finished it today actually, which it's about to launch. It's called How to Create a Dope Online Course. And the reason why that was is because while I had developed, online courses several years ago, I hadn't spent time marketing those courses because I had been so busy traveling a lot.
Right.
But to be honest, it is my online courses that have saved my life at this point. Like a lot of my friends who are consultants, authors, motivational speakers, they're struggling in a major way right now because schools are closed. So that means they cannot make money. Not only are schools closed now, as you mentioned, schools will be closed for the next few months. So not only are a lot of my friends not able to make money right now, they're not really seeing any hope for the near future. Maybe in August, and that's a maybe. We don't know how they're going to open. So ultimately, because I had an online course, that has been my lifeline throughout this time, and it continues to be my savior. And so as a result of that, I've been helping a few of my friends develop online courses, professional grade online courses, not just, any just rinky dink, online, professional grade online courses. And so I created a course for helping people do that. And it's called How to Create a Dope Online Course. And I know the word dope for some people in some cultures, they don't understand that, but then it just takes me to help orientate them. But, so yeah, that's my newest creation of content, if you will. And all of that will be found at, Hustle University's website.
Yeah, well, listen, I always appreciate having some time with you. I was wondering if you had an opportunity to speak to teachers future teachers. I mean, I feel like this is a chance for teachers to reboot, to reconsider, as you mentioned, biases, unconscious biases, to really come back whenever we come back with a possible clean slate, a new attitude.
Yes.
And if there's some teachers out there willing to do that, what would be Hotep's message to them? Those who are willing to come back with a clean slate and face kids of all backgrounds, but particularly the kind of kids that you're working with, what would be your message to them?
I think I'd have the same message to teachers as I would to administrators and to parents as well. I think one of the things that COVID-19 has done has made it amazingly clear to our country how important we as educators actually are, how important schools are, the vast value of the service that we provide. I think parents are starting to see that obviously a lot more than anybody else because their children now have to be home. Parents are struggling with not only having their children home, but now being forced with the task of helping keep their education moving forward. So I think there's there's an opportunity here in our country for a greater appreciation of the service that we as teachers provide and that schools provide to our country. And I hope that I believe that parents are seeing this and feeling that more than anybody else, but I hope we as teachers start to see that as well and say, wow, we are valuable, because I meet a lot of teachers that don't feel like they're making a difference, that they're on the verge of burning out, they want to quit and all this. But now we can see that we are necessary, we're important, that we are valuable to this country, we're valuable to our children, and our children are valuable to us, right? Because a lot of us now are also missing our children. We miss being in the classroom. Even some of those knuckleheads that may look like me or Eddie, you miss that guy. You miss him. Like he gave you hell, but he was a sweet kid. He was really a good kid. You miss that. So it's an opportunity for us to really reflect on what we have been doing. And as you said, reset. And for administrators, the same thing. This gives us an opportunity as administrators, as organizational leaders, to look at our policies, procedures, to reevaluate how we've been running our school. Oftentimes, in working with principals, they end up, overlooking climate and culture, policies and procedures and all those things just to deal with the day-to-day items, discipline and attendance and things of that nature. But now we as administrators and organizational leaders can step back and say, you know what? Because we don't have to deal so much with the day-to-day intricacies of what happens in the schoolhouse, maybe we can look back and say, you know what? Let me work on some of the structural things that our school needs. Maybe I can focus on, maybe we can create a different schedule. Maybe we can improve our policies, our procedures, work on things that are more organizational, to improve our school when our children come back. So I think my message would be the same to everybody. This is an opportunity to reset, to reflect, and ultimately to come back bigger, better, and stronger, my brother. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we're going to end on a light note. We like to have a little fun in the closing. What we've been collecting are lists of things people have been watching. I mean, I don't know about you, but because of the hustle bustle, you don't get to spend a lot of time watching stuff. But quarantine has presented some opportunity to do that. Are there any things that you've seen, that you've learned stuff from, that you would recommend? Or is there anything that you've enjoyed that kind of take you away, that you and the wife maybe watch and you would recommend to folks who are interested in our streaming list?
Yes. So a few things. One that my wife and I are watching, it's not The Story of Us. What's it called? Oh man, This Is Us. It's a TV show. This Is Us. I love This Is Us. It's like, I'm not going to tell you what it's actually about. It's about family. It's about real life issues that we as human beings deal with. And they tell it multi-generational. It's a phenomenal way, the way they bridge those gaps. I love it. I love that show. highly recommend that to any and everybody. It really helps you see the humanity in people. Other than that, because I'm a new father, I've been watching it on Netflix, a documentary called Babies, learning a lot about babies and how, not only how, how babies develop, and learning a lot about that. Like a lot of stuff that I thought I was a pretty intelligent guy. I took early child education and taught, but that documentary series, very informative. I watched a little bit about the Microsoft guy. What's his name?
Steve Jobs or Bill Gates?
Gates. Yeah, Bill Gates. Bill Gates. They have a short mini series on Bill Gates and watching him and how he operates. I found that very interesting because I also watched something about Warren Buffett. And it's interesting to watch those two, certified geniuses and how similar in personality they are as well. I would not be surprised if we found out that they were both on the scale of autism, you see, on the autistic scale. And that's part of the savant that they express, right? So I found that interesting to watch those. And I watched the Madam C.J. Walker series, a bona fide hustler, the first female millionaire in America, whether black or white, was Madam C.J. Walker, a bona fide hustler in her own right. And to watch her story is very interesting. I don't know how historically correct it was, I'm not sure, but it was a very interesting story. I would recommend that to anybody, especially our young people, to maybe get some inspiration and get on your hustle too,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. That's a nice, robust, diverse list that you presented there, bro. I appreciate that. Listen, let me just reiterate. Let me just say it again. Anytime you're welcome at the White Privilege Conference, whether we want to do an all-day hustle institute or, of course, do some workshops and be amongst the community, you are always welcome, man. We appreciate you giving us some of your valuable time as a new father and a man on the hustle.
Yes, sir.
So sending you love, man, and appreciation. Take care of yourself. And congratulations, Pop. What's the baby boy's name?
His name is Saladin. It means righteous warrior.
Oh, I love it. I love it, man. Well, you take care. Give my best to the wife, and congratulations to you both, man.
Thank you. Same to you, my brother. Take care. I'll see you at the next conference.
Yes, sir, for sure. Peace.